When a forgotten small-town doctor walks into America's most expensive hospital and tells their best cardiac surgeon, "You're killing her," nobody believes him, until 9 minutes later, he does the impossible and saves the dying billionaire CEO that an entire team of specialists couldn't. But here's what they don't know. Years ago, this same hospital destroyed his life, covered up his wife's death, and forced him to disappear. Now he's back, and the truth he's been hiding will shake their world apart. Stay with me until the end of this story. Hit that like button and comment what city you're watching from so I can see how far this story travels. The vinyl chair in Ethan Cole's cramped clinic squeaked under old Mrs. Patterson's weight as she apologized again for not having insurance. Third time this month. Ethan waved her off without looking up from the prescription pad, his handwriting messier than it used to be back when it mattered, back when people cared about things like that. $20, he said. That's what I'm charging you. Dr. Cole, the medication alone costs $20. He handed her the script. And I want you back here in 2 weeks. Not 3. Not when it gets worse. 2 weeks, Margaret. She took the paper with shaking hands, eyes wet. Ethan turned away before she could start thanking him. He hated that part. Always had. The clinic smelled like industrial cleaner and old coffee. 2 exam rooms, a waiting area with chairs that didn't match, and a front desk where nobody actually sat because Ethan couldn't afford a receptionist. The building itself sagged between a hardware store and a place that sold antique furniture nobody wanted. Black Ridge, Montana wasn't the kind of town where people moved to start over. It was where you ended up when you'd already tried everything else. Ethan walked Mrs. Patterson to the door, watched her climb into a pickup truck that looked older than his, then locked up 20 minutes early because there weren't any other appointments. There were never that many appointments. The February cold hit him like a fist when he stepped outside. Sharp, mean cold that made his jaw ache. He pulled his coat tighter and headed down Main Street, past the hardware store, past Jensen's diner where they knew his order by heart, past the post office where Sharon always asked about Lily. Lily. His daughter would be getting out of school in 15 minutes, and if he was late again, she'd be standing alone by the chain-link fence with that expression she wore when she tried not to look worried. 7 years old and already learning to hide her feelings. He walked faster. The elementary school sat at the edge of town, a squat brick building with windows that rattled in the wind. Ethan arrived with 3 minutes to spare, took his usual spot by the fence, and waited. Other parents clustered in small groups, talking about weather and town council meetings, and whose kid made the honor roll. They nodded at Ethan when they saw him. Always polite, never quite friendly. The bell rang. Kids poured out the double doors in a chaos of backpacks and shouting. Lily appeared near the back of the crowd, smaller than most of the other second graders, her dark hair pulled into a ponytail that had gone crooked sometime during the day. She spotted Ethan and smiled, and something in his chest loosened a little. "How was school?" he asked when she reached him. "Fine." "Just fine?" "We had math. I don't like long division." "Nobody likes long division. It's basically torture they invented for children." She giggled, took his hand. They walked home through streets lined with houses that needed new paint, past yards where pickup trucks sat on blocks, under a sky that looked like old dishwater. Lily talked about her friend Emma and the class hamster, and how her teacher said they might do a science project about volcanoes. Ethan listened, made the right sounds at the right times, tried not to think about the stack of past due bills on his kitchen counter. Their house was small, 1-story, with siding that had once been white. The porch steps creaked. The front door stuck in the frame and you had to shoulder it open. Inside smelled like the chicken he'd put in the slow cooker that morning, which meant dinner was already handled and he wouldn't have to think about cooking later when he was too tired to stand. "Homework first," Ethan said, hanging up their coats. Lily groaned but dropped her backpack on the kitchen table and pulled out a worksheet. Ethan started making coffee, moved around the kitchen on autopilot while she worked through multiplication problems. The house was quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator and the scratch of Lily's pencil on paper. He'd bought this place 6 years ago with what little money he'd had left after leaving New York. The real estate agent had called it cozy, which was code for small and full of potential, which meant it was falling apart. But it had a yard where Lily could play and a second bedroom and a kitchen table where they could eat dinner together, and that was enough. That had to be enough. "Dad?" Lily's voice pulled him back. Is 14 times 6 84? Yes. Are you sure? Very sure. She wrote down the answer, moved to the next problem. Ethan poured coffee into a mug that said, "World's Best Dad," because Lily had given it to him last Christmas, sat down across from her, and tried not to notice how much she looked like Sarah. Same dark eyes. Same way of concentrating so hard her forehead wrinkled. Same stubborn set to her jaw when something didn't make sense. Sarah had been gone for 5 years. Lily barely remembered her anymore, which was both a blessing and something that hurt so much Ethan sometimes had trouble breathing. "Done," Lily announced, pushing the worksheet toward him. Ethan checked her work, found 2 mistakes, helped her fix them. Then she disappeared into her room to play while he started on dinner prep, cutting vegetables with a knife that needed sharpening, listening to her makeup stories for her stuffed animals in the other room. The afternoon light coming through the kitchen window turned orange, then pink, then gray. He was draining pasta when the television in the living room flickered to life. Lily must have turned it on. She liked the nature documentaries, the ones about penguins and deep-sea creatures. Ethan didn't mind, kept her entertained while he finished cooking. But then the sound changed, adult voices. Urgent. "Dad!" Lily called. "Something's happening." Ethan dried his hands and walked into the living room. Lily sat cross-legged on the floor, still holding the remote, staring at the TV. The screen showed the inside of what looked like a corporate press conference. Expensive suits, flash photography, a woman at a podium, mid-sentence, when her words suddenly slurred. I need to... The woman's face went pale. Her hand gripped the podium, then her knees buckled. The screen erupted into chaos. People shouting, cameras swinging, someone yelling for a doctor. Ethan's coffee mug froze halfway to his mouth. The woman on the screen was Victoria Sterling. He knew that face. Everyone in America knew that face. 30 years old, CEO of Sterling Biotech, worth something like $8 billion. She'd been on the cover of Forbes 3 times. Time magazine had called her the future of American medicine. 6 months ago, she'd testified before Congress about drug pricing and made 2 senators look like idiots on live television. And now she was on the floor of some conference room in Manhattan, not moving, while EMTs rushed in with equipment and the news anchors started speculating about strokes and heart attacks and whether America was about to lose one of its brightest minds. Ethan set down his mug carefully. His hands weren't shaking. Not yet. "Is she going to be okay?" Lily asked quietly. "I don't know, sweetheart." The news cut to a reporter standing outside Manhattan Crown Medical Center, breath visible in the cold New York air. "We're just receiving word that Victoria Sterling has been admitted to the cardiac intensive care unit. Sources inside the hospital say her condition is critical. The medical team, led by renowned cardiologist Dr. Marcus Hale, is working to stabilize her, but as of this moment, details remain scarce." Ethan walked into the kitchen and turned off the stove. The pasta could wait. Manhattan Crown Medical Center. Of course it was Manhattan Crown. Where else would they take someone like Victoria Sterling? The best cardiac unit in the country. The most expensive hospital in America. The place where they promised miracles and sometimes actually delivered them. The place where Sarah had died. Ethan leaned against the counter, pressed his palms flat against the cool laminate surface, and tried to slow his breathing. That hospital was 2,000 miles away. That part of his life was over. He'd left it behind, burned those bridges, changed his phone number twice to make sure nobody from that world could ever find him again. His phone rang. Ethan looked at it sitting on the counter. Unknown number, New York area code. He didn't answer. It rang again 30 seconds later. Same number. "Dad?" Lily appeared in the doorway, clutching her stuffed bear. "Your phone!" "I know." He declined the call. The phone immediately rang again. Ethan stared at it. 5 years he'd been in Montana. 5 years of peace, of quiet, of pretending the past didn't exist. And now this. He answered. "Dr. Cole?" A woman's voice, professional but strained. "This is Jennifer Reeves. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at Manhattan Crown Medical Center. I apologize for calling like this, but we have a situation. I don't work at your hospital anymore." "I'm aware. But Dr. Cole, we need you. Victoria Sterling's cardiac function is deteriorating despite our interventions. Dr. Hale requested we contact you specifically. He said if anyone could... Marcus Hale can go to hell. Silence on the other end. Then, "Dr. Cole, a woman is dying." Marcus should be able to handle it. He's the great Dr. Marcus Hale, isn't he? Department head, published in every major journal, speaks at conferences around the world. I'm sure he'll figure it out. Her implanted cardiac device is showing irregular readings. The team suspects a rejection reaction, but the presentation doesn't match any standard protocols. They've tried. Not my problem. "Dr. Cole, please." Ethan hung up. His hand was shaking now. He shoved the phone in his pocket and turned back to the stove, relit the burner under the pasta water, focused on the small blue flames, because if he didn't focus on something normal and ordinary and not connected to that hospital, or that city, or any of the people he'd left behind, he was going to put his fist through the wall. "Was that about the lady on TV?" Lily asked. "Yeah. Are they asking you to help her?" "They asked. I said no." Lily was quiet for a moment. Then, "Why?" "Because I don't do that anymore." "But you're a doctor." "I'm a small-town doctor now. I take care of people here." "That's enough." Lily didn't say anything else, just stood there holding her bear and watching him with those dark eyes that saw too much. After a minute, she went back to her room. Ethan finished making dinner. They ate at the kitchen table, the TV still on in the other room showing continuous coverage of Victoria Sterling's collapse. Updates every few minutes. Condition critical. Medical team working around the clock. Nation holding its breath. He washed dishes, helped Lily with her bedtime routine, read her 2 chapters from the book they were working through, some fantasy thing about a girl who discovers she's a princess. Lily fell asleep before he finished the 2nd chapter, curled up under blankets printed with stars. Ethan turned off her light and went to his own room, sat on the edge of his bed in the dark. The house made its usual settling noises around him. Wind rattled the windows. The heating system kicked on with a groan. His phone buzzed with a text message. "Unknown number. Dr. Cole, this is Marcus Hale. I know we didn't part on good terms. I know you have every reason to hate me, but that woman is dying and I cannot save her. Whatever happened between us, whatever you think of me, she doesn't deserve to die because of our history. Please." Ethan deleted the message without responding. Another text appeared immediately. "Her cardiac output is down to 40%. We've tried every intervention. She's 30 years old, Ethan. She has family, people who love her. I'm begging you." Ethan turned off his phone. He didn't sleep that night, just lay there staring at the ceiling, listening to the house, thinking about Sarah and Manhattan Crown and all the things he'd tried so hard to forget. Around 3 in the morning, he got up, walked into the kitchen, made coffee he didn't drink, and stood at the window watching snow fall in the yellow cone of the streetlight. Victoria Sterling was dying in a hospital 2,000 miles away, a hospital that had killed his wife, a hospital that had covered up their mistakes, a hospital that had destroyed his career when he'd tried to expose the truth. Let them figure it out themselves. Let Marcus Hale suffer for once. Let that whole corrupt system face something it couldn't fix with money and lawyers and carefully worded press releases. Ethan went back to bed, still didn't sleep. The next morning, Lily came into his room at 7, already dressed for school, and climbed onto the bed next to him. "Did you sleep?" she asked. "A little." "You're lying." "Maybe." She was quiet for a while. Then, "Mom would want you to help her." Ethan closed his eyes. "Don't." "She would, though. Mom helped everybody. You told me that. You said she couldn't walk past someone who needed help without stopping. Lily, and you always said I should try to be like her. That's not fair. I know." Lily hugged her bear tighter. "But it's true." Ethan sat up, looked at his daughter sitting there in her school clothes with her crooked ponytail and her stuffed bear and her mother's eyes, and felt something crack in his chest. "If I do this," he said slowly, "we'd have to go to New York. Okay? It might be dangerous for both of us. Okay? And after it's over, there's a good chance I'll never be able to practice medicine again anywhere." Lily thought about that. "Would you still be able to take care of people here in Blackridge?" "Probably not." "Then we'll figure something else out." She said it with such simple confidence, like the future was just another math problem they could solve together. Ethan pulled her into a hug. She smelled like kid shampoo and sleep. 7 years old and already braver than he'd ever been. Okay, he whispered into her hair. Okay. 2 hours later, Ethan had thrown clothes into a duffel bag, arranged for Mrs. Patterson to check on the house, and strapped Lily into the passenger seat of his 14-year-old pickup truck. The clinic was locked. A sign on the door said, "Closed for emergency, back soon." The truck's heater worked intermittently. The radio only picked up static outside of town. They had a thermos of coffee, a bag of gas station sandwiches, and 2,200 miles of highway between Montana and Manhattan. Ethan pulled out of Black Ridge as the sun came up over the mountains, turning the snow pink and gold. Lily waved at the town as it disappeared in the rear-view mirror. Neither of them said anything about whether they'd be coming back. The drive took 40 hours with stops for gas and food and restless sleep in truck stop parking lots. Lily mostly slept or read her books or asked questions about New York that Ethan answered in brief, careful sentences. He didn't tell her about the last time he'd been in that city, about finding Sarah in the recovery room with her lips already turning blue, about the doctor who'd looked him in the eye and lied about what had gone wrong, about the months he'd spent investigating, collecting evidence, building a case that should have been ironclad, only to watch the hospital's legal team tear it apart like tissue paper. He didn't tell her any of that. They reached Manhattan on the evening of the second day. The city rose up around them like something from another planet. Glass towers and illuminated advertisements and crowds of people moving through concrete canyons. Ethan had forgotten how overwhelming it was. The noise, the lights, the sheer density of human beings all pressed together. Manhattan Crown Medical Center took up an entire city block in the financial district. 15 stories of steel and glass, the kind of building designed to project competence and wealth. Ethan parked in a garage 3 blocks away because the hospital's lot was full, then walked with Lily through streets where steam rose from grates and people in expensive coats hurried past without making eye contact. The hospital lobby was all marble and recessed lighting. A water feature burbled against one wall. Everything smelled antiseptic and expensive. Ethan approached the main desk holding Lily's hand, very aware of how he looked. Unshaven, wrinkled clothes, winter jacket with a torn pocket. The receptionist glanced up from her computer screen. "Can I help you?" "I'm Dr. Ethan Cole. I was contacted about Victoria Sterling." The woman's expression shifted from polite disinterest to something harder to read. She picked up a phone, spoke quietly into it, then looked back at Ethan. "Someone will be right down." They waited in chairs near the water feature. Lily clutched her stuffed bear and stared around at the lobby with wide eyes. 3 minutes passed, then 5. Ethan was starting to wonder if they'd forgotten when the elevator doors opened and a woman in a dark blazer stepped out. "Dr. Cole?" She walked toward them with quick, efficient steps. "I'm Jennifer Reeves. We spoke on the phone. Thank you for coming." Ethan stood. "How is she?" "Not good. Dr. Hale is with her now, but—" Jennifer's eyes flicked to Lily. "Is this your daughter?" "Yes. Her name is Lily." "Dr. Cole, I'm not sure if bringing a child to—" "She comes with me or I leave. Those are the terms." Jennifer hesitated, then nodded. "6th floor, cardiac ICU. I'll take you up." They rode the elevator in silence. Jennifer kept glancing at Ethan like she was trying to reconcile the man in front of her with whatever she'd heard about him. When the doors opened, they stepped into a hallway that smelled like disinfectant and fear. The cardiac ICU was a maze of glass-walled rooms surrounding a central nurse's station. Monitors beeped. Ventilators hissed. Somewhere a phone rang and rang and rang. Jennifer led them past rooms where patients lay connected to machines, past nurses who looked up with exhausted eyes, to a larger room at the end of the hall where several people in white coats stood, clustered around a bed. "Wait here," Jennifer said, then went to tap one of the doctors on the shoulder. The man turned. Ethan recognized him immediately. Dr. Marcus Hale had aged in 5 years. More gray in his hair, deeper lines around his mouth, but still the same posture, the same air of absolute confidence even when he was clearly out of his depth. Marcus saw Ethan and went very still. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then Marcus said something to the other doctors and walked over. "Ethan? Marcus? You came. Don't read anything into it." Marcus glanced at Lily. "This is my daughter. She stays with me." "Of course." Marcus ran a hand through his hair. "Look, I know we have history. I know you blame me for... I don't want to talk about history. What's her status? Marcus seemed to deflate slightly. Cardiac output at 38% and dropping. We've attempted 3 different medication protocols: electrical cardioversion, emergency catheterization. Nothing's working. The device, it's a Sterling Meyer XR9, implanted 18 months ago after she developed an arrhythmia. Recent imaging shows inflammatory markers around the implant site, but the presentation doesn't match typical rejection. Have you considered removing it? Too risky in her current state. She'd code before we got it out. Ethan looked past Marcus to the room where Victoria Sterling lay connected to more machines than seemed possible. I need to see her chart. Of course, but Ethan... Marcus lowered his voice. Whatever you can do, do it fast. She doesn't have long. Ethan walked into the room. The other doctors, 4 of them, all in expensive-looking scrubs, stepped back to give him space. They watched him the way you'd watch a stranger at a funeral, curious but wary. Victoria Sterling looked small in the hospital bed, pale, unconscious. Tubes and wires everywhere. The cardiac monitor above her bed showed a rhythm that made Ethan's stomach tighten. Not good. Not good at all. He picked up the chart from the end of the bed and started reading. Behind him, Lily settled into a chair near the door with her bear. Nobody said anything, just the beeping of monitors and the hiss of the ventilator and the quiet sound of pages turning. Ethan read for 7 minutes, then he looked up. "You're killing her," he said quietly. The room went dead silent. One of the younger doctors, a woman with red hair pulled back in a ponytail, spoke first. "Excuse me? You're killing her," Ethan repeated. "The inflammatory response isn't rejection. It's an interaction between the device coding and her immunosuppressants. You're treating the symptoms and making the underlying cause worse." Marcus stepped forward. "That's impossible. We've run every test." "Did you check for cross-reactive polymer syndrome? That's extremely rare." "It's also exactly what this is." Ethan dropped the chart back on the bed. The XR9's coding breaks down under certain immunological conditions, releases particulates that trigger a cascade response. Every medication you've given her has accelerated the breakdown. You've been poisoning her for the last 48 hours. The red-haired doctor looked at Marcus. "Is that possible?" "It's theoretically possible, but the incidence rate is less than 0.05%, Ethan finished. "I know. I helped design the original study." That got their attention. All 4 doctors stared at him now with different expressions. Surprise, skepticism, recognition. Marcus cleared his throat. Ethan was one of the leading cardiac surgeons in the country before he left medicine. "I didn't leave. I was forced out." Ethan looked directly at Marcus. "Because I wouldn't keep quiet about mistakes." The tension in the room ratcheted up several notches. Marcus's jaw tightened. The other doctors glanced at each other. Then the cardiac monitor started screaming. Everyone turned. Victoria's heart rhythm on the screen went from bad to catastrophic, ventricular tachycardia spiraling into fibrillation. "She's coding!" the red-haired doctor shouted. Nurses burst into the room. Someone yelled for the crash cart. Marcus pushed past Ethan toward the bed, started barking orders. "Charge to 200! We need—" "Stop!" Ethan's voice cut through the chaos. "What?" "Stop! You shock her now, you'll blow out what's left of her cardiac tissue. We have to—" "Marcus!" Ethan grabbed his arm. "Trust me, just once." They stared at each other. Around them the alarm screamed and nurses waited, and Victoria Sterling died a little bit more with every passing second. "Fine," Marcus finally said. "Do it." Ethan moved to the bed. Lily watched from her chair by the door, still holding her bear, dark eyes taking in everything. The other doctors backed away to give Ethan space. He could feel them judging, doubting, waiting for him to fail. He'd forgotten how that felt. The pressure. The weight of a life in your hands. The knowledge that one wrong move, one missed detail, and someone's daughter or wife or mother stops existing. He'd forgotten. But his hands remembered. Ethan worked quickly, adjusting medication dosages, changing her position, manipulating the device settings in a sequence he'd only read about in research papers because nobody actually performed this procedure. It was too dangerous, too experimental, the failure rate too high. You're going to kill her, someone whispered behind him. She's already dying, Ethan said without looking up. This is the only chance. 3 minutes passed. 4. The monitor continued screaming. Victoria's lips were turning blue. Ethan made one final adjustment to the device settings, then stepped back. Now we wait. Wait? The red-haired doctor sounded horrified. We need to... Wait. 30 seconds. A minute. Everyone in the room stood frozen, watching the monitor, watching Victoria's chest barely rise and fall, watching the numbers that said death was coming and there was nothing they could do about it. Then the rhythm changed. Just slightly. A flutter. A catch. Another 30 seconds. The rhythm stabilized. Normal sinus, strong and steady. The alarm stopped. Someone let out a breath. Then another. The red-haired doctor looked at the monitor, then at Ethan, then back at the monitor like she couldn't quite believe what she was seeing. Marcus stared at Victoria's now normal heart rhythm. How did you... The device has a secondary calibration protocol, bypasses the main interaction pathway. It's in the technical documentation, but nobody reads technical documentation. Ethan's hands were shaking now. He shoved them in his pockets. She'll need the device removed within 48 hours once she's stable enough for surgery. And someone should review every medication order from the last 3 days because you've probably done some kidney damage. Yes, of course. Marcus still looked stunned. Ethan walked to where Lily sat. Come on, sweetheart, let's go. Where are you going? Jennifer Reeves had appeared in the doorway. Back to Montana. Dr. Cole, you just saved Victoria Sterling's life. The board will want to meet you, and I don't care what the board wants. Ethan picked up his daughter. She wrapped her arms around his neck. I came because someone asked for help. I helped. Now we're leaving. He walked past Jennifer, past the nurses, past the other doctors who stepped aside to let him through. Behind him he heard Marcus call his name, but he didn't stop. Just carried Lily down the hallway, into the elevator, through the lobby with its marble floors and expensive water feature. They made it 3 blocks before Ethan had to stop and sit on a bench, because his hands wouldn't stop shaking and his chest felt too tight and everything he'd been holding back for the last 40 hours hit him all at once. Lily climbed down from his arms and sat next to him. You okay, Dad? Yeah, just give me a minute. They sat there while the city moved around them, people walking dogs, taxis honking, someone selling hot dogs from a cart across the street, normal life continuing like nothing had happened. After a while, Lily said, That was pretty cool. What you did. Yeah? Yeah, you saved her. I guess I did. Does that feel good? Ethan thought about it. I don't know yet. They sat a while longer. Then Ethan stood, took Lily's hand, and started walking toward where they'd parked the truck. They'd made it 5 more blocks when a black SUV pulled up beside them, and the window rolled down. Jennifer Reeves looked out at them. Get in the car, Dr. Cole. We're leaving. Victoria Sterling is awake. She's asking for you. Tell her I'm glad she's okay, but she knows who you are. Jennifer's expression was serious. She knows what happened to your wife. She knows what this hospital did to you. And she wants to talk to you anyway. Please. Ethan looked down at Lily. She shrugged, which meant it was his choice. He was so tired. Tired of running. Tired of hiding. Tired of pretending the past didn't matter. Okay, he said. Okay. They got in the SUV. The SUV smelled like leather and air freshener trying too hard to smell like pine trees. Ethan sat in the back with Lily pressed against his side, watching Manhattan slide past the tinted windows. Jennifer Reeves sat up front next to the driver, typing something on her phone. Nobody spoke. They pulled into the hospital's underground parking garage, a concrete cavern lit by fluorescent lights that made everyone look half dead. Jennifer led them to a private elevator that required a key card. The doors closed with a soft hiss, and they rose in silence. She's in the executive suite, Jennifer said, still looking at her phone. 7th floor. Normally, we'd keep her in ICU for another 24 hours, but she refused. Said she needed to think clearly, and she couldn't do that with alarms going off every 30 seconds. Sounds stubborn, Ethan said. You have no idea. The elevator opened onto a floor that looked nothing like the rest of the hospital. hardwood floors, actual artwork on the walls instead of generic prints, a sitting area with furniture that belonged in someone's expensive living room. This was where the rich people recovered from their surgeries in private rooms that cost more per night than most people made in a month. Jennifer stopped at a door near the end of the hall. She's still weak. Don't tire her out. She looked at Lily. Maybe your daughter should wait outside. No, Lily said firmly before Ethan could answer. Jennifer blinked, then something almost like a smile crossed her face. All right then. She knocked twice and opened the door. The room was bigger than Ethan's entire clinic back in Blackridge. Floor-to-ceiling windows showed the Manhattan skyline lit up against the evening sky. A couch, a television, a bathroom that probably had heated floors. And in the middle of it all, a hospital bed where Victoria Sterling sat propped up on pillows, looking pale and exhausted, but very much alive. She turned her head when they entered. Her eyes, dark brown, sharper than they had any right to be considering she'd been dying 3 hours ago, fixed on Ethan. "Dr. Cole," she said. Her voice was rough, probably from the intubation tube. "Thank you for coming back." "Ms. Sterling," Ethan stayed near the door. "I'm glad you're feeling better. I'm told I have you to thank for that." She shifted slightly in the bed, winced. "The doctors explained what you did. None of them had ever seen that procedure performed successfully before. Most people haven't. It's risky. But you did it anyway. You were dying. So I'm told." Victoria's gaze moved to Lily. "And who's this?" "My daughter, Lily." "Hello, Lily." Lily waved her stuffed bear. "Hi." Something changed in Victoria's expression, softened for just a moment before the sharp intensity returned. "Dr. Cole, I asked you here because I owe you my life, but also because I know who you are. What happened to you 5 years ago?" Ethan's jaw tightened. "Then you know why I don't want to be here." "I do, and I'm going to tell you something that will probably make you want to leave immediately." Victoria paused, took a breath that clearly hurt. "My father owned shares in Medicare Pharmaceuticals through a shell corporation. They were one of the primary investors in the cost reduction initiative that led to your wife's death." The room went very quiet. Ethan felt Lily's hand slip into his, held on tight. "My father died 3 years ago," Victoria continued. "Cancer. I inherited everything, including business interests I didn't know existed. It took me 2 years to untangle all of it, sell off the problematic holdings, clean up the mess. But that doesn't change the fact that my family's money was connected to what happened to Sarah." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you deserve to know. And because I want you to understand that I'm not asking you to forgive what happened or to forget it. I'm asking you to let me try to make it right." "You can't make it right." Ethan's voice came out harder than he intended. "My wife is dead. Your father's money helped kill her. No amount of—" "I know." Victoria cut him off, but gently. "I know I can't bring her back. I know nothing I do will ever be enough. But I can tell you what really happened that day. The things the hospital never admitted to." Ethan went still. "What do you mean?" "Sit down, Dr. Cole. Please. This is going to take a while." He didn't want to sit, wanted to grab Lily and walk out and never think about any of this again. But his feet moved anyway, carried him to the chair beside the bed. Lily climbed into his lap without being asked. Victoria reached for a glass of water on the bedside table. Her hand shook. She took a sip, set it down carefully. "After I woke up and Dr. Hale told me what you'd done, I had my legal team pull every record related to your wife's case. Medical files, incident reports, insurance claims, internal memos, all of it." She paused. "Sarah Cole, age 28, admitted for a routine appendectomy. Simple procedure. She should have been home in 2 days. I know what she was admitted for. But you don't know what actually killed her, because they lied to you." Victoria's eyes held his. The anesthesiologist who handled her case, Dr. Raymond Chen, was working a double shift. He'd been on for 16 hours when Sarah went into surgery. Hospital policy clearly states no anesthesiologist works more than 12 consecutive hours, but they were understaffed that week and someone in administration approved the overtime. Ethan's chest felt tight. "Go on." Dr. Chen made a mistake with the dosage. Not a huge one, but enough. Sarah had an adverse reaction during recovery. Her oxygen levels dropped. It should have been caught immediately, but the monitoring equipment in that particular recovery room had been flagged for maintenance 3 weeks earlier. The work order was delayed because the hospital was over budget for the quarter. Jesus, Ethan whispered. By the time a nurse noticed something was wrong and called for help, Sarah had been hypoxic for almost 4 minutes. They tried to resuscitate her, but the damage was too severe. She died at 11:47 p.m. Victoria's voice was steady, but Ethan could hear the effort it took. Dr. Chen was devastated, wrote a full confession, demanded the hospital take responsibility. I never saw any confession, because it disappeared. The hospital's legal team buried it. They paid Dr. Chen a settlement to stay quiet and leave the state. The equipment maintenance records were altered to show the machines had been working properly. And when you started investigating, they made sure you couldn't find anything that would hold up in court. Ethan couldn't breathe. 5 years he'd suspected something like this, but having it confirmed, hearing the actual details, felt like being cut open without anesthesia. Where's Dr. Chen now? He managed. Alaska. He quit medicine entirely, works as a fishing guide. And the administrators who approved the overtime, the people who delayed the maintenance? Most of them still work here. A few got promoted. Victoria shifted in the bed again, her face tight with pain. I'm sorry, Dr. Cole. I know this doesn't help, but you deserve to know the truth. Lily was crying quietly against Ethan's chest. He held her tighter, pressed his face against her hair, and tried to remember how to keep himself together. Why? He asked finally. Why tell me this now? Because I'm going to destroy them. Victoria's voice went cold. Every person who covered this up, every administrator who chose budget over safety, every lawyer who buried evidence. I'm going to burn this hospital's reputation to the ground and build something better from the ashes. But I need your help to do it. Ethan looked up. What? I want you to stay. Work with me. Help me find every other case like Sarah's, because there are others, I guarantee it. Help me document everything. And when we have enough evidence, help me present it to the medical board and the press and anyone else who'll listen. You're insane. Probably, but I'm also rich enough that they can't silence me the way they silenced you, and I'm angry enough not to care what it costs. Victoria met his eyes. I almost died in this hospital today, the same hospital where your wife died because they cut corners to save money. That's not a coincidence, it's a pattern, and patterns can be broken. You just woke up from a coma. Technically, it was medically induced unconsciousness, not a coma. Whatever it was, you should be resting, not planning some crusade against Dr. Cole. Victoria's voice sharpened. I didn't get where I am by resting when there's work to be done. Now, are you going to help me or not? They stared at each other. Outside the windows, the city glittered like broken glass. Lily had stopped crying, but she didn't let go of Ethan's shirt. I need time to think, Ethan said. You have until tomorrow morning. There's a hotel room reserved for you and your daughter 2 blocks from here. Jennifer will take you there. Get some sleep. Eat something that isn't from a gas station. Then come back and give me your answer. And if I say no, then I'll have my lawyers draft the biggest check you've ever seen, and you can go back to Montana and forget any of this happened. Victoria paused. But I don't think you will. Because if you were the kind of person who could forget, you wouldn't have spent 5 years in a town nobody's heard of treating people who can't pay their bills. Ethan stood, still holding Lily. You don't know anything about me. I know you came 2,000 miles to save the life of someone connected to your wife's death. That tells me everything I need to know. Jennifer was waiting in the hallway when they left the room. She led them back to the elevator without asking any questions, which Ethan appreciated. His head felt too full. Too much information. Too many emotions he'd buried 5 years ago now clawing their way back to the surface. The hotel was exactly the kind of place Ethan had never been able to afford. Marble lobby, doormen in uniforms, the front desk person who smiled like she actually meant it. Jennifer had already checked them in. She handed Ethan 2 key cards. Room 1847. It's a suite. There's a separate bedroom for Lily. She hesitated. For what it's worth, Dr. Cole, Victoria doesn't make offers like this lightly. She sees something in you. She sees someone she can use. Maybe, but she could use anyone. She's choosing you. Jennifer turned to leave, then stopped. Oh, and Dr. Hale asked me to tell you he'd like to speak with you tomorrow if you have time. No pressure. Tell him I'll think about it. The suite was absurd. Living room with a couch and chairs and a dining table. Kitchenette with a coffee maker that looked like it belonged in a science lab. 2 bathrooms. The bedroom had a bed big enough to sleep 4 people comfortably. Lily immediately ran to the windows and pressed her face against the glass. "Dad, look! You can see everything." Ethan joined her. The view stretched across Manhattan, millions of lights spreading in every direction. He'd forgotten how beautiful the city could be from far enough away. "Are we staying?" Lily asked. "I don't know yet. Do you want to stay?" "I don't know that either." "What did the lady mean about Mom?" Ethan sat on the edge of the bed. Lily climbed up next to him, still clutching her bear. He tried to figure out how to explain it in a way that wouldn't give her nightmares. "The hospital made mistakes when they were taking care of Mom," he said slowly. "Bad mistakes. And then they lied about it so they wouldn't get in trouble." "That's not fair." "No, it's not." "Is that why we left New York?" "Part of it, yeah." Lily was quiet for a moment, then, "If you help that lady, can you make them tell the truth?" "Maybe. I don't know." "Do you think Mom would want you to try?" Ethan closed his eyes. Sarah had been so adamant about doing the right thing even when it was hard. Especially when it was hard. She'd once spent 6 months fighting their insurance company over a denied claim for one of her patients, a kid who needed physical therapy after a car accident. The insurance company had more lawyers than Sarah had sick days, but she'd won anyway through sheer stubborn persistence. "Yeah," he said quietly. "I think she would." "Then I think you should do it. Even if it means we stay here for a while. You'd have to go to a new school, make new friends." Lily shrugged. "Emma Johnson back home picks her nose and tries to make me eat it. I can do better than Emma Johnson." Despite everything, Ethan laughed. "Okay, fair point." They ordered room service, Lily's first time having food brought to a hotel room, and ate overpriced pasta while watching cartoons Ethan didn't understand. After she fell asleep, he sat by the window and thought about Sarah and Victoria Sterling and whether it was possible to get justice for something that happened 5 years ago. His phone buzzed, a text from a number he didn't recognize. Unknown. "This is Marcus. I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I need to say this. I'm sorry. For what happened to Sarah. For not standing up to the administration. For letting them push you out. You were right about everything, and I was a coward. If you're willing to meet tomorrow, I'll tell you everything I know. If not, I understand." Ethan stared at the message for a long time before typing back. "Ethan, 10 a.m., hospital cafeteria." The response came immediately. "Marcus." "I'll be there. Thank you." Ethan didn't sleep much that night either. Kept thinking about Dr. Chen in Alaska, about maintenance records that got altered, about all the other Sarah Coles who died because hospitals cared more about quarterly budgets than human lives. When morning came, he felt hollowed out but clear-headed. Lily woke up, and they ordered breakfast, more overpriced food that she thought was amazing, and then headed back to Manhattan Crown. The hospital looked different in daylight, less imposing, just a building full of people trying to save lives and also trying to make money. And sometimes those two things came into conflict, and people died because of it. The cafeteria was on the second floor, a large space with too many tables and not enough windows. Marcus was already there, sitting in a corner booth with 2 cups of coffee. He looked like he hadn't slept either. "You came?" Marcus said as Ethan approached. "I said I would." "Where's Lily?" "Children's wing. They have some kind of playroom. Jennifer's assistant is watching her." Ethan sat down across from Marcus. "You have 30 minutes. Marcus pushed one of the coffee cups toward him. "I've been working at this hospital for 14 years, department head for the last 7, and in that time I've seen things that would make you sick. Try me. 3 years ago we had an outbreak of post-surgical infections, 17 patients in 6 weeks. The source was contaminated equipment that hadn't been sterilized properly because the hospital switched to a cheaper sterilization service. 2 people died. The hospital settled quietly, and nothing ever made it to the press." Ethan's hands tightened around the coffee cup. "Last year," Marcus continued, "a diabetic patient went into a coma because a nurse gave her the wrong insulin dosage. The nurse was an agency temp working her 3rd consecutive shift because we were understaffed. The patient survived, but with permanent brain damage. Hospital called it an unavoidable complication." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you asked me once why I wouldn't back you up when you tried to expose what happened to Sarah. You said I was putting my career ahead of the truth. And you were right. Marcus looked tired, old. I told myself I could do more good by staying inside the system, that if I kept my head down and played the game, eventually I'd have enough power to change things. But all I did was become part of the problem. So what changed? Victoria Sterling almost died yesterday because I was too proud to admit I didn't know what I was doing. And then you walked in, someone I helped destroy 5 years ago, and saved her life anyway. That's when I realized I've been lying to myself about who I am. Ethan drank some coffee. It was terrible, burned and bitter. What do you want from me, Marcus? Nothing. I just wanted you to know that if you decide to stay and help Victoria tear this place apart, I'll help you. I have access to files you can't get to. I know where the bodies are buried, metaphorically speaking, and I'm willing to testify to whatever you need. You'd lose your job. I should have lost it 5 years ago. Marcus smiled without humor. Better late than never, right? They sat in silence for a while. Around them, the cafeteria filled with hospital staff grabbing breakfast between shifts, doctors and nurses and orderlies, most of them probably decent people, just trying to do their jobs. But somewhere above them were administrators making decisions about budgets and efficiency and acceptable risk levels, and those decisions killed people. I haven't decided yet, Ethan said. If I'm staying. I know. But when you do decide, and I think we both know which way you're leaning, call me. I'll help however I can. Marcus stood. I need to get back to rounds, but Ethan, thank you for saving her and for not punching me in the face when you had the chance. Day's not over yet. Marcus actually laughed at that. Then he left, and Ethan sat alone with his terrible coffee and his thoughts. He found Lily in the children's wing, sitting at a table covered in markers and paper. She'd drawn a picture of what looked like their house in Montana, except it had wings and was flying through clouds. That's creative, Ethan said. It's our house if it could go anywhere, so we wouldn't have to choose between Montana and New York. She added more clouds. Did you talk to the doctor? Yeah. What did he say? That he's sorry for what he did, and that he wants to help make things better. Do you believe him? Ethan thought about that. I think he believes himself. Whether he actually follows through is different. They went back up to Victoria's room. She was sitting up in bed this time, looking stronger than she had the night before. A laptop was open on her lap, and she was typing one-handed while her other arm rested in a sling. You should be resting, Ethan said from the doorway. And you should be in Montana, but here we are. Victoria closed the laptop. Have you made a decision? I have questions first. All right. If we do this, if we actually try to expose what's been happening, it's going to get ugly. They'll fight back, use lawyers, PR firms, whatever it takes to discredit us. Are you prepared for that? Yes. They might come after your company, your reputation, everything you've built. Let them try. Victoria's eyes were hard. I have better lawyers. And what about after? Assuming we actually succeed and bring down the people responsible. What then? Then we build something better. A hospital that actually puts patients first. Medical care that doesn't bankrupt people. A system where doctors like you don't have to choose between their ethics and their careers. She paused. I'm not naive, Dr. Cole. I know we can't fix everything, but we can fix this, starting here. Ethan looked at Lily. She gave him a small nod. Okay, he said. I'm in, but I have conditions. Name them. First, Lily's safety is non-negotiable. If at any point this puts her at risk, we stop. Agreed. Second, I want full access to everything. Medical records, financial documents, internal communications. No holding back information because you think I can't handle it. Done. Third, when this is over, assuming we're both still standing, I want a job. Not here. Somewhere else. A clinic in a neighborhood where people actually need help. You fund it, I run it, and nobody tells me how to practice medicine. Victoria smiled. Dr. Cole, I think that might be the easiest condition anyone's ever given me. Anything else? Yeah, stop calling me Dr. Cole, it's Ethan. All right, Ethan, you can call me Victoria. She held out her hand. Partners? Ethan shook it. Her grip was still weak, but her eyes were steady. Partners. Good. Because we're going to need to move fast. I've already started making calls. The board is meeting tomorrow to discuss my medical incident. I want to be there with evidence of every other incident they've covered up in the last decade. That's less